Hello, dear viewer. I hope you've already subscribed by clicking the bell so you don't miss new parts or new stories. Enjoy the story and, of course, have fun watching it. A Farewell Dance. Therapy with Tom, Session 4, end of September. What's up, Jim? Tom pulled out a notepad and pen. I knew the sessions were being recorded, but he was still sticking to the old school. It made me feel strangely reassured, as if the recording made everything seem more real. You know, it's all good, just trying to keep it up. I gave a slightly uncertain shrug. So you just want to pay me to hang out? Because people, especially with stories like the one you told me, don't come to me because they're doing well. He leaned forward. I'm here to help you, Jim. To help you get through this and figure out what to do next. How are you really doing? I've been better. Okay, good. He chewed the tip of his pen, a gesture by which I recognized him as an ex-smoker. How are you feeling? I thought for a long moment, then uttered, tired, sad. I hesitated, and Tom looked at me encouragingly. Silly. I lowered my head. Weak. I'm well aware that I feel tired and sad. It's a normal reaction to an all-encompassing trauma like this, and I understand why you may feel stupid and weak, but you're not. You have to understand your story. He frowned and set aside his pen and notepad. Jim, I don't do this very often, maybe a dozen times in my 30 years of practice, but I'll take off my therapist hat and tell you this. That was one of the biggest failures I've ever heard. I laughed at his unexpected candor. Yes, it really is. Tom shook his head. You are entitled to feel any emotion you want about Linda's act, your friends and LW, not to mention Mark and Ellen. That's what I have to say as part of proper professionalism. And here's what I shouldn't say, at least not as directly. You are absolutely justified in feeling betrayed by almost everyone in your life. You are not stupid. I've seen cults that have used less effective brainwashing techniques. And the fact that you went through this because you want to do the best for your children? You're not a weak man. I admire that level of sacrifice. Thank you, I'm not done yet. Awe isn't necessarily a positive thing, Jim. I too feel awe at a tsunami or a charging rhinoceros. But this is dangerous and destructive. Your stoicism in the face of... He made an incredulous yet angry face, his hands gesticulating wildly. Literally everything that has happened to you? That's not healthy. Not for you. Not for your relationship. Not for your children. He hesitated, as if he wasn't sure if he should say anything. Then, gathering his resolve, he continued. I want to tell you one more thing. Your story was so unusual that after our first session, I checked it out a bit. Frankly, I feared that you might have paranoid delusions. I thought you might be an undiagnosed schizophrenic. So unusual were your statements. But everything I could check confirmed it. I cannot imagine that you have had to go through this Kafkaesque nightmare for the past 7 months. I frowned. I had spent the first 3 sessions talking in detail about everything that had happened to me as a result of Linda's infidelity. It had been painful to relive, but it felt good to talk to someone I could trust with complete objectivity. Well, not really. I was paying him, but I was paying not only for his honesty, but also for his abilities. I needed to figure out what to do to somehow get over this once and for all. He took a deep breath. There's so much here that we need to delve into, but I want to start here. In the story you told me, literally every named adult you personally knew when it started, except for the woman who watched your kids and the waitress at the diner, either lied to you, betrayed you, or gassed you. And sometimes all 3. It's just crazy. Another thing I liked about Tom from the moment I met him was that he usually avoided clinical language. I didn't know if it was a rhetorical device or if he was just that way, but it was comforting. No words about psyche, attachment, or any of that nonsense unless it was absolutely necessary. Your stoicism is unhealthy, and I think you know it. Deep down, I think that's why you're here. My first impression is a reaction to the fact that everyone you know tried to stop you from taking steps to do something about what was happening to you. You were trying to take action, but you were running into difficulties at every step, and so you had to become stoic. It was the only way to deal with the fact that you knew it was all wrong, but everyone was actively preventing you from doing something about it. He began to list the points on his fingers. You tried to stop Mark and Linda from dancing and then slow dancing, but your friends stopped you. You tried to get Linda to leave with you right after the dance, but she left with Mark after lying to you to do so. Your initial reaction to your wife leaving with Mark was that you tried to follow her, but you were blocked by D. Then your other friends tried to tell you that there was nothing wrong with it. You knew it was, and you were right, but they made it impossible to stop Linda. Then they spent several more weeks trying to convince you that it was perfectly normal, and you just needed to get over it. Linda came home and told you all this. Pardon the expression, complete and utter nonsense that you knew was complete and utter nonsense. But she and your friends just kept pushing it into you. Tom was on fire. This session was the first time he had spoken more than 2 sentences in a row since I started seeing him. He had already run out of fingers on one hand, and we were not even a third of the way through my story. You go to a lawyer, your lawyer, an old family friend, and he tells you that this is normal for women, that it's to be expected, even, sort of, acceptable. Then he tells you a completely inaccurate story about how important it is for children to have 2-parent families. Don't get me wrong, it's certainly preferable, but a family in which he made a all of this gesture happened is not going to be a healthy place to raise children unless the people involved are willing to pay for a vacation home for couples. I love my profession, but there are limits to what we can do. I frowned. I don't want my kids to have to deal with what goes on in a single-parent family, Tom. Tom sighed. You already are, Jim. Your house is a wreck, and honestly, it looks like it's broken you too. I'm sorry, but there's a lot of trauma here that we're going to have to overcome. At the very least, it sounds like you have depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. I scoffed. Come on, it's not like I was in combat. You don't have to be in combat to get PTSD, Jim. A car accident, abuse, violent incident. He looked at me intently. Or an unexpected betrayal can trigger it. Think about it, Jim. How did you react to seeing Linda in the blue dress? Panic, memory loss, inability to function. These are classic symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. He stopped and shook his head in disgust. And here she is, putting it on in front of you, not a week after it all happened. And later she wants you to ask her to dance in it. That's not the act of a loving wife, Jim. Or at least not the act of a wife who realizes how much she's hurt her husband. I nodded. That was painful. A lot. I don't know what she was thinking putting it on that night at dinner with the kids, and I had to just suck it up and bear it so the kids wouldn't suspect anything. When she insisted on wearing it to the dance, what the hell was that? She wanted to wear it so that she would have better memories of wearing it? He saw that I was thinking it over and nodded. Pretty messed up, huh? I looked down at the ground. Yes, when you put it like that, yes. And yet we're not even halfway through what's happened in the last 7 months. He put his hand on my shoulder. Look, we're going to help you through this, or at least do the best we can. And I'm going to keep my therapist hat on throughout all of this. I think, he sighed, sympathizing with me. I think you need someone who's not going to try to be clinical and tell you something like, oh well, this incident damaged your sense of self, at least not in most cases. In some cases it's going to happen, because sometimes that's the best way to get the information out. But you've had a bunch of normal people in your life tell you that the emperor wasn't naked, and I think you need someone to tell you that no, he was absolutely 100% naked, and he was throwing his dick in your face, and you need someone to say that who's not trying to be a scumbag. We should start with, He raised his eyes to the ceiling for a moment. Your reality was shattered, and no one tried to help you fix it. You were just told that your reality had always been this way, and you just needed to accept it. We need to get you back to a place where you realize not only that it's messed up, but that it's okay to say, it was messed up, and people I trusted did this to me. And my detachment and clinical approach won't help with that. You need someone to tell you clearly and unequivocally, this is wrong. And it's not just me. You need to hear it from others as well. He leaned back. Besides your dancer friends, do you have other people to spend time with? Golf buddies, bowling buddies, work friends, anything else? I shook my head sadly. No, they were pretty much all the same face. We went to dances, I played golf with them, all of it. I have a few work friends, but that's what they are, work friends. We might have a beer after work, but nothing more than that. I had a fantasy soccer league, but… I faltered. Tom nodded sympathetically. Yes, yes. And I know soccer season has started. How are you dealing with it? I gave an unfunny chuckle. Not really. Asshole is all over the TV right now. I have a lot of Netflix at home. I try not to go anywhere that will show the news or the game, so I don't really like to eat out or go to bars. I shook my head. God, I'm so pathetic. Hey, no. Tom's voice was harsh. Not rude or harsh, but the voice of a friend trying to get through to a man beating himself up. You're not pathetic. A reminder of the worst night of your life randomly pops up on every screen in a world you have no control over. Imagine instead that you were mugged and a video of this guy showed up everywhere you went. That would be pretty traumatizing, right? I nodded. You need to find something to do, preferably one where you can meet people, where you can get away from Linda and your old circle of friends and just be Jim. Not the Jim who is told he has to be a part of this craziness, just Jim. Any suggestions? Oh, there's lots of things to do there. Book club, art classes, gym, a new hobby, anything. I looked down at myself and sighed. I got a little soft in the middle. It was hard to care about. I shook my head, trying to keep my emotions under control. I'll never compare to him, you know. I'll never be an asshole. Even if I was his age, there's no way I could be anything but me. That pathetic. Tom growled. Shut the fuck up. What? He looked angry, but not at me, but for me. Listen to me. You are incredibly strong. You love your children. You take care of your wife, who frankly doesn't deserve shit, judging by her actions. You did everything you could to get your life together after the most spectacular and public betrayal I've seen in my entire career. You're not pathetic. I want you to say it. I'm not pathetic. Again, I'm not pathetic. Louder. I'm not pathetic. It was stupid, I know, but it felt really good to say it. So maybe it wasn't so stupid after all. Tom looked at his watch and said, Our time is coming to an end. There are a few things I want you to do this week. The first is to find an activity that will get you out of the house and socialize with new people. I want you to start doing 5 daily affirmations. I'll let you choose them, but I want to discuss them in the next session. Along with that, I want you to try to drop any negative statements about yourself. No more, I'm pathetic, etc. This applies to thoughts and ruminations. It's okay if an intrusive thought slips through, but I want you to correct it immediately, and I want you to do it out loud. Sound good? Yes, good. I wasn't convinced, but I was paying him for his expertise, so I did what he said. Great. Listen, Jim, you're at the beginning of a very difficult journey, and I'm proud of you. I want you to know that. A lot of guys would just give up on a challenge like this, but you're taking it head on. It takes a lot of courage. I'll see you next week. Work on what we talked about. Initial evaluation of personal training with Dewan is late September. So, what are you here for, Jim? Lose weight? Get in shape? Fix some sore spots? Dewan turned out to be nothing like I expected. I thought he'd be one of those huge, pot-bellied guys I'd seen in the squat room. Guys like. Anyway, Dewan wasn't like that at all. He was certainly fit, but more like a martial artist or dancer than a bodybuilder. When he told me he was 52, I was amazed. He didn't look more than 30. He was a physiotherapist and also did personal training. According to one of the girls at reception, I was very lucky to have chosen him as my trainer. Little by little, I don't even know. Out of the options Tom offered, I chose the gym because, to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure I needed to go socializing. I was hoping I could just work on it with Tom. Talking about it with other people was kind of awkward. I wanted to put it all behind me. And it seemed unnecessary. I was starting to come around to the idea he'd expressed that I'd been duped by everyone, and that made me very angry. Linda noticed, I know. And I guess that was another part of it. Yeah, I was never going to be an asshole. I just couldn't physically be that big and athletic. But I needed to get better if I was going to end my relationship with Linda. I don't know if I'll ever be able to trust a woman again, or anyone for that matter, but I didn't want to let go of my body completely, just in case. And if she and I did work things out, maybe I'd worry less about her fantasizing about Mark whenever we were together. God, I was pathetic. Shit, I muttered to myself under my breath. I'm not pathetic. Dewan raised an eyebrow. It's just, my therapist says I have to stop talking negatively about myself, even just thoughts. Seems like a smart man. He looked at me. Okay, so lose weight, get in shape. That's the sensible thing to do. You could probably do with losing 30 or so pounds of fat. With diet, we can certainly do that. What do you do? Desk work, the usual business stuff. I used to care a lot more about my work. Lately, I've had a hard time giving a damn about it. It's been hard for me to give a damn about anything at all. Been sitting around most of the day? I nodded. I see you have pain in one of your legs. The pain is in your knee, right? Yes, that's right. For the last few months, I thought it was just weight I'd gained, but I'm worried it's something more serious. Well, let's see. He began manipulating my leg, watching my reaction at various points. I hissed in pain a couple times, and he nodded. The good news is that there doesn't seem to be any structural damage. Stand up for a moment. I complied with his request, and he felt my leg. Yes, there it is. Your muscles are unbalanced, too much strength on one side, not enough on the other, so you're creating tension in your muscles just by existing. Pretty common if you're in the same position most of the day. He poked his finger at some spot on my leg, and I felt a sharp pain in my knee. Good. Sit down. We can get into this right now. Dewan pulled out a thing that looked like a mix between a vibrator and a gun. He turned it on and started running it up and down my thigh. It hurt terribly at first, but after 5 minutes, the pain in my knee was almost gone. A massage gun. You can buy one on Amazon for $100 and use it every day. It won't fix the problem, but it will make it better for a while, and we can treat the cause. He grinned. You'd be surprised how often we confuse the location of the pain with its cause. Humans are amazing creatures, but sometimes they're damn hard to deal with. If I had been a little dubious about it before, I was now in complete agreement. This problem had been bugging me for months now, and the thought that it could be fixed so easily by simply talking to the right person was, unsurprisingly, quite appealing. So, where do we start? Therapy with Tom, Session 7, mid-October. I still don't know why Linda did it. I mean, I know why she said she did, but it was all contradictory. I couldn't help myself, and I wasn't in control, but then she actively worked with Dee to distract me. It was the best night of her life, but not as great as with me. It meant nothing, and it was an experience I'll never forgive myself for missing out on. And that stupid, insulting Maserati minivan thing. I rolled my eyes. Honestly, fuck you, Linda. I don't think I'd ever said that out loud. I shook my head. I don't understand. I don't know if I could ever go through this without realizing it. Tom nodded sympathetically. You don't want to hear this, but I think there's a good chance you'll never know, because I think it's possible Linda doesn't really know. The other option is that she does know, but the answer is so horrible. To her, the thought of telling you the truth about the why means the end of your marriage. That's why she doesn't do it. He sighed. I'll say this. The one you paint is a very self-serving woman, very needy. She cheats on you with someone else. Then she just tries to get out of it and pretend it's okay. When that doesn't work, she makes excuses why it's not her fault he's so magnetic and dominant. She puts that dress back on, for some reason to show you that nothing has changed. It's either an incredible level of self-deception or outright cruelty, and I'm not sure which. Then she explodes when you tell her how hurt you are and how hard it is to trust her, because she feels bad about herself, which, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be. And then she lashes out and makes you apologize to her for not understanding how she feels. Now, he was on a roll. After the first night together, she mentions him by name again. By name. In her note to you, saying that the night was not so good as with him. She tries to say that she would have preferred you anyway, but that is the most insulting way she could have done it. She tries on the dress again, even though she knows it gave you a panic attack last time. She doesn't even try it on in private with you. She just puts it on for the date, and you have another panic attack. She has a complete breakdown when you dance. Just dance with Ellen. I interrupted. I would have done more with her. He threw his hands up in the air. Yes, after your wife has already made love to another man. We're getting off topic, Linda, but yes, let's digress a bit. Pretending that you know what you would have done with Ellen before your wife hurt you so badly, and after she hurt you so badly, is silly. Maybe you still would have gone with Ellen before. You can't know. I suspect not, but as I said, it's foolish. What I do know is that you had a bunch of unresolved injuries, and still do for that matter. And she just wore a dress that gave you a panic attack. She's the one who insisted you dance with Ellen. And then when you saw your wife distraught, you ran to her. Linda, on the other hand, knew how hurt you would be when she left. She saw you right after dancing with her, and she did it anyway. You could see in her face that she was afraid, that she knew what she was doing was wrong. She still conspired with the others to not only leave, but to interfere with her. Let's also not ignore the fact that Ellen is literally a high-class escort whose job that night was to seduce you. Mark may be a ladies' man, and he may be a professional, but he's not that professional. He doesn't know seduction the way she does. He waved his hand dismissively. But we'll talk about that later. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. What I wanted to say is this. The only time Linda really took responsibility for her actions, said what she did was wrong, said she really understood how she hurt you, and really apologized for running off with the asshole. I smiled as he used my name to refer to, well, asshole. That's once she found out you could actually leave her. Until she saw you with Ellen, she doubted you'd ever leave. It wasn't until she finally believed there was a chance of losing you that she actually took full responsibility for her actions and apologized for them, not just for how hurt you were. This is the key point. Not how much she hurt you, but how you were hurt, as if it was your fault, as if your pain was almost independent of her actions. He pinched the bridge of his nose. Remember I told you that when you first came to me with this story, I feared you might be delusional to the point of schizophrenia? Well, I'll tell you this. Linda being delusional would be one of the most pleasant possibilities, because everyone else is everything from a narcissist to a borderline sociopath. Has she ever volunteered to do anything to earn your trust again? Not just try to be a better wife, which is as vague a concept as one could ever hope for. I mean the very basics of accountability after cheating, an open phone and email policy, answering calls and texts immediately, allowing you to spy on her, anything like that? I shook my head. No. I shook my head. No. Do you think she'd do it if you asked her to? I shrugged. I don't know, I guess. She said she was willing to do anything, but she didn't even stop talking about asshole in favorable terms. So what do I know? Tom sighed. Let's talk about something we haven't touched on yet. After LW revealed his involvement, and we'll come back to this in a later conversation, Linda replied that it didn't surprise her that Ellen wasn't really interested in you. How did that make you feel? Like shit. Not really. This whole thing, I know you said we'd talk about it later, but it's what, more than anything else, made me come here. It wasn't the biggest betrayal, but it kind of cemented it for me. Everything in my life has gone to shit. It turned out that literally no one was on my side. Everyone was just manipulating me. Even LW, even if he thought it was for our good, he still did it. And then he bragged about it afterward. How? God, what was the point? Just to show how fucking smart he was, that he was just another person who could puff up my eyes? Did he really think it would somehow make us better? At the time, I believed it was real, and I think Linda did too. But now we both know it wasn't, and there's no way I'd pull someone like Ellen. It put us at odds again. But he laughed about it. I think that's the main thing. I shook my head in disgust, thinking about how a so-called family friend had treated me. And sure, Linda has jokingly brought up the fact that Ellen wasn't real a couple times, but not in jest. About the same as when you catch some racist and he tries to portray that he was just joking, that he wasn't really a racist and you have to have a sense of humor about it. That's exactly how she feels about Ellen. Oh, I think we both should have known she wasn't interested. Ha 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 ha, I'm kidding, my big silly man, you're wonderful. Of course, Linda, of course. Now I was angry. Really angry. I was starting to realize something. The problem wasn't the cheating. Not really. It wasn't even about all those people who had manipulated me. It was Linda. She surrounded us with these people, except for LW. She tried to manipulate me until it was clear it wasn't working anymore. She asked them to manipulate me, tried to get us to continue to communicate with them. Tom saw the wheels turning. Yes, tell me, what are you thinking right now? My trainer told me the following. You'd be surprised how often we confuse the location of the pain with the cause of the pain. He was talking about my knee. It was hurting, but the cause of the pain was because the muscles next to it were trying to tear it apart because of an imbalance. But now I think that, yes, the cheating caused the pain, but really almost all of my pain is caused by Linda. Not just because she cheated, but everything before and after. Tom nodded. We're almost done for the day, but I want you to think about this before the next session. If your son came to you 25 years from now and told you that his wife was acting just like Linda, what would you advise him? If your daughter 25 years from now behaved like Linda, would you be proud of the girl you raised? After all, you are both role models for your children. Your reaction to the way Linda treats you, whether you stay with her and put up with it or leave and show you don't want to, will affect them far into the future. Personal Training with Devon, Session 10, mid-November. Yeah, bro, keep it up. I was sweating, trying my best to keep up the pace Duan was setting for me, but I was succeeding, just barely. What started out as 3 times a week for 30 minutes at the gym quickly turned into 6 times for an hour. I would get up early or leave after the kids went to bed. I tried to stay away from Linda these days, and the gym gave me an excuse to do so. I didn't want to ruin the kids' Christmas, but I was gathering my wits. Even if I ended up on the losing end of the settlement agreement, I would get out of it. Duan turned out to be very easy to talk to. I suppose he had, in his own way, seen as many people's divorces as Tom had. When he asked me a few weeks earlier why I was suddenly working out so intensely at the gym, I told him the whole story. The affair, the aftermath, the manipulation by friends and acquaintances, all of it. His response: "That's the most fucked up thing I've ever heard." Okay, now we're going into cooling mode. Thank God. How's the knee feeling? I puffed. Great, great. The foam roller works wonders on him. And how are things, At home? Honestly, much better. It's like, I know it all sucks. Now people don't tell me it's okay. At least not anyone I listen to. I cut those assholes out of my life. I know why I was hurt, and I'm working on dealing with the cause, not the symptoms. And Linda, how can I put this delicately? He grinned understandingly. I have an idea. You look better, you have more stamina, you're stronger. She wants to spend more time in the bedroom, doesn't she? Lots of divorces, like I said. I stepped off the treadmill because if I started laughing, I'd probably fall over. Yeah, something like that. Maybe it's petty, but it feels good to turn her down. Or not to reject her, but to be selfish. Hating her, I guess that's what it's called. I shook my head. The most frustrating thing is that she seems to get more pleasure out of making love to me now than she did before. Apparently that's another thing she's been lying about. He clapped me on the back. You're handling this, man. As fucked up as everything you've told me is, you're handling it like a champ. He glanced at his watch. I gotta go to my next client. Finish up your warm-up, and I'll see you in early December. Happy Thanksgiving, Jim. You too, Duan. Therapy with Tom, Session 15, mid-December. Tom smirked. Well, you're in a chipper mood today. I can't figure out why. I laughed out loud. Oh, I think you can. You must be one of the only men in our fine city who is excited about what happened last night. Oh, that's almost certainly true. But I belong to a very exclusive, very unhappy fraternity of men who hate the asshole. I paused, pondering. It was unpleasant to admit it. Although, in a way, I suppose he did me a favor. I think back to how Linda treated me, and it was really shitty for a long time. Yeah, the fact that he picked her out of the crowd and made love to her, well, let's just say he totally deserved what he got. But I'd probably live with that fool for the rest of my life, too. I smiled to myself. Tom had noted over several sessions how much more colorful my language had become. Things I had mostly given up because of Linda were coming back as her influence on me waned. I used to swear like a sailor. Now I had found a new middle ground. I didn't have time to recover from the excitement when it happened. There was no way I was going to watch soccer this year, if at all, especially not with the home team. But one of my gym buddies who knew the story called me, laughing, and told me to turn on the game. And there, in magnificent replay after magnificent replay, Marc Lavaliere was penalized. Karma, divine justice, whatever you want to call it. An insurmountable defender crashed into Marc just as he was going down and catching the ball. and American spectators got to see what happens when a person gets their leg broken in 3 places when landing after a jump. Spoiler, it was very painful. He will never play again, never steal another man's wife on the dance floor, and probably never be able to walk without a cane. It couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Tom asked, "What did you feel?" Honestly, at first I was just laughing my ass off. It was great. I shook my head sadly. But then I realized it doesn't really fix anything. Yeah, I'm glad he won't do that to anyone else, but I shrugged. It didn't change anything for me. But still, emotionally, on a feeling level, awesome. I ended up grabbing my spare pack of cigarettes, the same one that had been lying unopened in my desk since I quit a year ago. Cracked open the seal, grabbed a couple cigarettes and a lighter, and went outside for a smoke. Tom looked at me glumly. I haven't touched them since. I threw the packet away afterward. He nodded in disapproval. But I thought it should be celebrated, at least a little. I raised my eyes to the ceiling. Sure enough, a couple minutes later, Linda was there asking why I was smoking again. I just started laughing like crazy and told her, and she looked at me like I was the devil incarnate. I cracked my neck, remembering how upset I'd been, and then turned cold. She had the nerve to defend him. That's a terrible thing to say. Why are you celebrating something like this? I know he hurt you, but to me he was a perfect gentleman and does a lot for our city. Tom raised an eyebrow. And what did you say? I put a smoke ring in her face and said, "Shut up, you cheating fool." Not the most elegant choice of words, but I thought it got the point across. I suppose it went wrong next. I grinned. Not as immediately as you might think. She was stunned for a moment. I don't think she expected me to say something like that. I'd been her passive, loving husband, her punching bag for so long, without realizing it myself, that she had no frame of reference for my sudden display of equanimity. She tried to tell me, "Well, what about the kids? Do you want them to see you smoking again? Don't you think it's a bad choice to choose that filthy habit again?" He tilted his head. I took another puff and pointed the cigarette at her. I mimicked the move I'd made the night before. "You can't talk to me about bad choices, ever." She started to argue and I just pounced on her. Listed all the ways she'd been a terrible wife for at least the last 5 years, how she'd taken me for granted, cheated on me, belittled me, tried to outmaneuver me, gassed me, all of it. I had planned to leave it all until the holidays, but she just got to me. It was like the cork coming out of the bottle. I told her we were getting a divorce, and if she tried to take the kids away from me, I would use every trick at my disposal to bury her, starting with the letters she so kindly wrote for me, as well as the tapes of the therapy sessions you recorded for me, if they proved useful. Tom leaned forward, concerned. Was that wise? Snorting, I replied, "Probably not, but I just saw in slow motion how asshole's leg gets broken from different angles over and over again. I had my first cigarette in a year, and Linda decided this was the best time to try and lecture me." I shrugged. If it had happened all over again, I probably would have kept my mouth shut, but I'm glad I didn't. It's nice to have all my cards on the table. "And what do you plan to do next?" "Well, she begged me to stay together, wants to go to couples counseling. No chance of it working, but since we have kids and I made the mistake of staying with her after what happened with the asshole, the court will probably order us to attend sessions. I have looked into the matter, and we can speed up the process by doing it ourselves. So that pretty much fits into my plans, and as a bonus, she'll probably tiptoe around me for a while." I laughed. "I guess sometimes things work themselves out. So, can you recommend anyone?" Family Counseling with Liz, Solo Session 2, end of January. Liz was an older woman, almost a matron. She was on her second marriage, the first having broken up after she'd cheated on her husband of 5 years. I wasn't thrilled when I found out, but Tom swore she was the best couples counselor in town. She agreed to take Linda and me on as clients to do him a favor. After she reviewed the tapes of the first 3 sessions Tom and I had with her, which told our story, she said, "Well, that's one of the most extraordinary things I've ever heard." I don't think the word "fucked up" existed in her vocabulary. "Jim, I understand you're still planning on getting a divorce?" I nodded. In the first few sessions, Linda repeated for Liz all her song and dance about how awful she felt, and was willing to do anything to fix our marriage, If only I would learn to let it go. Liz, being an astute counselor, realized that little of what Linda said had any basis in fact. I don't see any reason to say no. She's not going to change, she's barely willing to admit she's wrong, and she's still teasing me, saying he was so much better in bed, that Ellen was a prostitute, that a real man would stay together for his family, all of it. She chewed the inside of her cheek, then nodded. I agree. People can only change if they want to, and she doesn't. I'm going to prepare paperwork that will allow you not to attend court-ordered counseling. More specifically, it will show that you've already attended sessions with me, and that I agree that there's no chance of reconciliation here. I nodded slowly, a little confused. Okay, that sounds great, but why did I have to come to a session to hear it? You could have just called me. The couple, or their constituents, must attend a minimum number of sessions before I can unsubscribe. This session will be considered the last one required. She looked hesitant. But there is one more thing. Since you are both my clients, and since this is couples counseling, I can share with you some of the things I have learned. I don't have a definitive answer as to why Linda acted the way she did, but I do have some insights, and I think that based on what she has told me, I am at least within the ballpark. Do you want to hear what I think? Or would you prefer not to know? I thought. There was a time when I would have given anything in the world to know why she did what she did. And now? All I wanted was to be done with her, but there was still some nagging curiosity in my soul. You think I want to know? Are you going to tell me she cheated on me throughout our marriage or something? No, nothing that radical, but I think it might give you some context. Her arguments are still very flimsy, very self-serving. But it might help you realize that there was nothing you could have done to prevent it, other than not being there that night. Or conversely, if you had been a much worse husband, you could have avoided it. Well, that alerted me. Okay, sure, now I should know. When was the last time before the affair that you were angry with her? I mean, really angry, slamming doors and crying with anger? I had to wonder. It's been years. Since Emma was born, so maybe 8 years now? I don't even remember exactly what it was about. She did something relatively minor, but rash. Careless. I think she had overdrawn our account buying some minor luxury, and we were about to default on a few bills. I admittedly yelled at her, and she ended up crying. I slept on the couch. The next day, we made up, and I decided that I would never bring her to tears like that again. And that was until... I sighed. So, yeah, not for long. Until she cheated on me. Are you renovating the house? She raised her hand, seeing the confusion on my face. I know that sounds like an allegory, but spare me. I assure you, it's quite appropriate for our conversation. Yes, I do some. In fact, most of them. My general rule of thumb is that if it involves turning off the water or electricity in the house, I trust a professional to do it. She nodded. And the same with the car repairs? I change the oil, do basic maintenance, that sort of thing. But for any major repairs, I take the car to the shop. She nodded. Linda mentioned that her negligence caused a major accident. It cost you guys a lot of money after franchise fees, rent, lost wages, and everything else. But you handled it with great grace and compassion for her. She was very appreciative of that. I remembered. It had been a tough couple months for us, because the parts supply chain was so up and running. One car for a while. The need to tighten our belts, her guilt, my frustration, all of it. The closest we've come in recent years was to fighting again, raising our voices and slamming the door. Until Asshole showed up. I assume you would give similar answers to questions related to cooking, money management, basically everything you do on any given day to get through life. That you are capable enough to do everyday things, but bring in a professional or expert when needed. I understood where this was going, and I didn't like it. If you mean... She begged for mercy. Please, everything will make sense if you let me explain. Or at least you'll understand Linda's train of thought. I closed my mouth and nodded sullenly. For such a beautiful woman, Linda is very insecure. About her looks, yes, but also about her status in the world. She has surrounded herself with people who have always told you too that your relationship is the best of them all. Couples over whom she can feel superior. But that's faint praise, especially when you consider that they've all gassed you and tried to stop you from stopping her, and that at least one wife has honestly admitted that she would cheat on her husband if given the same opportunity as Linda. Linda was trying to get you to go through the recovery process to regain your self-esteem. It was important for her to believe that she was a good person. And when you finally made it clear to her that no, nothing she did was the act of a good person, she had a breakdown that you had to help her recover from, and which she tried to make you feel guilty for causing in the first place. And once she found out that Ellen was a prostitute, she started picking on you to keep you in your place, which she thought was on her side. Well, on her side, but lower in rank. She kept intentionally doing things to you that hurt you in order to reconcile who she really was with who she thought she was. I nodded slowly. It all sounded something like this. From everything she said, you were a very good husband. You tried not to deny her anything, and if you did, it was only when your family couldn't afford it, or if you needed to do something to take care of the kids that got in the way of that. You were a loving person, a wonderful parent, and a faithful life partner. You made her feel safe and loved, caring. I gritted my teeth in annoyance, and Liz switched to a sympathetic tone. Please don't misunderstand me, Jim. These are all good things. It's what a husband should be willing to do for his wife. But it's also what a wife should do for her husband, and Linda lost sight of that somewhere along the way. As part of being a good husband, if there were things you couldn't do for her, you still made sure they were done. You're not the best cook, so on special occasions you took her out to dinner. You have a stubbed toe, so you hired a landscaper to help her put in a flower bed. I scoffed. So because I'm not the best lover, I had to let her sleep with Goat? Liz gave herself a sour look. She didn't like swearing when it could be avoided. Not really, but that's where I'm going with it. You're a good dancer, but Mark was great. He could have been a teacher. You're a handsome man, but he has the looks of a movie star. She knew you wanted the best for her, would bring in an expert to help if necessary, so she... Liz shook her head, as if she couldn't believe the idiocy of Linda's ideas. So she, at least subconsciously, thought it was no different, at least at first. It was just a skillful dance with a handsome man. You may have been annoyed, but no more so than when you had to give up fixing the sink and call a plumber. I rubbed my temples. What the fuck? And so the seed is sown. Her husband wants her to have the best of everything, will go to great lengths to make sure she has it. He's already let her dance with Ace. She hesitated. Mark, so why doesn't he pamper her some more? Oh, he might be upset, but no more so than when she was in the car accident that jeopardized your marriage for a few months. It was just another case of going to a specialist you couldn't afford to get what you couldn't give her yourself. You had kept your temper under control during that accident, as you had done for years, so why wouldn't you? She knew you had forgiven her and continued to love her even after that mistake. She thought it would be the same in this case. But it wasn't then, and it wasn't, and her marriage began to crumble. Linda became increasingly desperate, having to convince both you and herself that she hadn't done anything wrong, that you were the one being unreasonable, because it was basically the same thing that happened when she wrecked your car, only the details were a little different. And when that failed, she had to start harping on you that it was your fault. Why didn't you stop her? You could have kept her from dancing. It didn't matter that her friends stopped you. You could have kept her from leaving. Never mind that she did everything she could to prevent it. And so on, and so on. Jesus. I hated to admit that from some twisted perspective it made sense. It was consistent with everything Linda did. If I was the worst husband ever, she'd never think it was okay. If she had been less insecure, she wouldn't have needed such admiration from a stranger. Liz nodded sympathetically. Please don't take this the wrong way, Jim. I hope you find someone else again, and I hope you can give them so much love. Don't take what happened with Linda as an indictment of you or women in general. I nodded, but I could still clearly read the bitterness in my expression. My job is to act as a neutral arbiter, to establish effective communication, to help people find out if they can overcome their problems and then help them solve them together. I try to find both the good and the bad in each partner's behaviors to facilitate this. Her tone softened. And I rarely say things like that, almost never. You didn't deserve on any level what she did to you, and she didn't deserve you. Thank you. I want you to know that I will continue to work on getting her to understand everything we just talked about. I think that without the short, sharp shock that this divorce will cause her, She will never be able to fully accept what she did as wrong, or why it was so wrong. I know you don't care about her anymore. I burst into a short, angry laugh. But even so, you're doing the best you can for her. I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse. Given the kind of person you seem to be, I think it's probably the former. Liz glared. Even if it does piss you the hell off. I grinned. I guess she had it in her after all. She glanced at her watch. Well, I don't think we need to inform the court how long you've been here. A session is a session, as far as I'm concerned. If you'd like to talk to me some more, I'd be happy to stay, but I think you'll want to digest this alone. I nodded, thanked her, and left. Therapy with Tom, session 59, mid-October. You're looking good, Jim. How are the kids? I smiled. They're doing really well. It was hard for them at first, but Linda has turned out to be a surprisingly good co-parent. I knew she loved the kids apart from that night. After all, they were safe at the babysitter's, and she thought I'd just nag a little, and everything would be fine. Perhaps that's why she offered full joint custody. That surprised the hell out of me. Liz has helped us a lot with the transition. The kids understand that what happened to me and their mom happened through no fault of their own, and that doesn't mean we love them any less. I sighed. Honestly, they got better almost immediately. Kids are smart. They realized something was wrong in our house a long time ago. You're right. It's better for them. Even Linda's gotten better. She apologized, really apologized for everything she did. These sessions with Liz seem to be helping her too. He grinned. I'm glad to hear that. How are things going with you guys? Everyone settled in? I shrugged. The place is a little small, especially when the kids come over, but it'll do for now. I'm looking for another job. Too many bad memories, and I realized I have more in-demand skills than I thought. Linda's need for stability above all else, at least when it came to me, really got me down. I smiled at the pleasant memory. And I'm still dating Josie. It's still early, but she spent the night at my place a few days ago, and we're planning on her doing it again soon. She understands that I want to take things slow. The divorce has taken its toll on her too. Tom nodded cheerfully at me. Okay, can you think of anything specific you'd like to talk about today? I sat in bewilderment for a while. I couldn't. You know? I can't think about anything right now. I grinned, remembering our conversation from over a year ago. Maybe we can really just hang out tonight. He laughed and stood up. Well, if we're going to do this, I'll go get my jacket. We'll have lunch, your treat. I opened my mouth to object. It's still cheaper than my hourly rate. Fair point. We left the office, and I realized that was probably it. I saw no need to go back and continue seeing Tom as my therapist. What had happened to me was in the past, and I was going to leave it there. This is the end of this, at first strange, but at the end already more understandable story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and put a like along with a bell.